Never give up. You're about to listen to the Darla Z, live from the Hollywood Room on the Bootleggers Music Group Radio. Award-winning singer-songwriter Darla Z brings you her special guests who share intimate stories about their lives, how they became successful in their chosen fields, how they learned from their mistakes, and how we can all make a positive difference in the lives of others. Welcome to Live from the Hollywood Room with your host, Darla Z.
Hi, this is Darla Z coming to you live from the Hollywood Room. I am joined by Cheryl Landon, who you heard from last week in our special Easter show, where we talked about some incredible stories that she had and some inspirational stories. Cheryl is the daughter of the famous and legendary actor Michael Landon, beloved actor Michael Landon. I happen to have always loved him. My family has always loved him. And over here is my mother, and she has always loved him. So, and Cheryl is an author. She wrote a book about Michael Landon. I Promised My Dad.
Two books.
Two books. She's got two books. She's an international speaker and inspirational speaker. And welcome back to the show, Cheryl. Very nice to see you again.
Oh, it's so good to be here. I love being here, so I get to share the wonderful things about my father, even the hardships about my father. And so many people just ask me, was Michael Landon really the person that he was on his TV shows? Who was Michael Landon? And that's something we're going to talk about.
Absolutely, we're going to talk about it. And for those that don't know of him in our audience, who are probably younger, because I know of him and I've known him for years. He started out. I mean, he did some movies, but he's best known for Bonanza, and that went on for 14 years. And then Little House on the Prairie, which was on for 9 seasons. And then we had Highway to Heaven, which was on for 5 seasons. So this guy created, and it's a love of mine, wonderful, wonderful, inspirational family entertainment. And so Cheryl is going to give us some background information and behind the scenes information about some of the fun stuff that happened when she was on set, or things that Michael told her. And I can't wait. And this is why Mom wanted to come and listen, because she's a huge fan too. So spill your guts.
Well, let me tell you, first of all, my father's name wasn't Michael Landon. It was Eugene Maurice Orwitz. He was Jewish.
My. Okay.
People go, he was Jewish? I thought he was a Christian. No, he was Jewish. His mother was an Irish Catholic. His father was a Russian Jew. He was born in Forest Hills, Queens, New York. And at 15 years old, they moved to Collingswood, New Jersey. What people don't know about Dad is that he had a horrendous, sad childhood. His mother was she was crazy. She was just mean and crazy. And he was a bedwetter, because imagine being told at 5 years old, you're not cute anymore, I don't love you. And then being a bedwetter, he would hang his sheets outside for all the neighborhood and the boys to see. And this even lasted till he was 15 years old. And he wrote the movie The Loneliest Runner. And that was about that experience. He also said he'd come home and his mother would be attempting suicide, and she'd wait for him to come home several times. She had her head in the oven, and he would be crying and begging her and trying to get her out of the oven. He said, I didn't know the oven was something to cook food with, because my mom always had her head in the oven and she'd be out singing. And he said, and I'd be out getting sick to my stomach. So he had a dream. He had a dream to be somebody. And he happened to hold the national record for javelin throwing. The national record for javelin throwing. He got a scholarship to USC. Now he thought, oh, I'm going to finally be somebody. I'm going to be on the Olympics. So he goes to USC. Now he had a Samson complex. He had long hair. He believed his hair gave him his strength. So he was out practicing the javelin, and he was Jewish, and there are a lot of anti-Semitic people. The boys on the football team happened to be that group, and they didn't like long hair. So they held my dad down and they shaved off all of his hair. He couldn't throw the javelin. He practiced for hours and hours. He tore the cartilage in his elbow. He couldn't throw it, and he lost his scholarship. He was on the streets with no money. Can you imagine? And not having family, no friends. He said he sold blankets door to door. He worked in a ribbon factory. And then he got a job at the YMCA as a lifeguard. But there's a catch. He didn't know how to swim. So one day, one of the boys, one of the children fell in the deep end, and he was the lifeguard on duty. So what does he do? He jumps in and he lifts the boy up out of the water. He holds him up. He's underneath, he's submerged in the water, and he walks the boy up to the shallow end. Well, all the mothers applauded. That was just the most incredible, marvelous save. You didn't have to use the chokehold. Oh, what a wonderful child you are. Well, what he did after that is he said he snuck into the gym every night and taught himself how to swim.
Yeah.
Fast forward, he's working in the warehouse, and a friend says to him, "Hey, I need to try out for a part in a play. Could you help me out with it?" So Dad said, "Sure." And they go to the audition, and Dad said that he was so emotional that he got the part, not the other guy. Dad got the part. He said it
That's
was a
hysterical.
wonderful way to release his feelings and to cry. And so now he's said that he had plans to be an actor, and got an agent, and the agent said, you can't be Eugene Orwitz. So he's in the phone booth, and he said, "Well, wait a minute." He flips through the pages, and he says, "Well, what about Michael Lane?" And the agent says, "Well, that name's taken." He goes, okay, well, what about Michael Landon?" Hey, that's a great name. That's how my dad
That's a great
became Michael
name.
Landon in a
That's
phone book.
great.
So
That's a
now
great
we're going to
story.
get to Bonanza. We're going to get to Bonanza. Well, Bonanza, most people don't know this. It was the first colorized regular TV program.
Oh,
Do you all know
wow.
that?
No, I didn't know that.
And
I might have. I might have.
My mom says
It-
she might have.
Well,
Like Michael
it's-
Landon.
that's a fact. It's the first regular colorized TV program.
Hmm.
And there was 3 sons. Ben Cartwright was the father. He had 3 wives, and they all deceased, and they gave him 3 different boys. Well, first of all, I'd be worried about marrying Ben Cartwright. They're gonna die. Well, that's how they had 3 different boys. So there's Adam, and Haas was actually an Eric, and then there was Joseph, who became Little Joe. Here's the thing, is that people want to know, was Michael Landon really like the players he played? Was he the characters? He was he grew up, we grew up with Michael Landon as he grew up in the characters, because he was the characters. The characters were Michael Landon. He was the feisty little Joe that all the women loved, and believe me, I saw it. I saw these women. I was so young, and they'd be screaming and yell, and they would try to tear his clothes. They wanted a piece of him. And here's me with my mom, and my mom, oh my, you don't fool
Well, wait a
around
minute.
with
We
her.
got to start. We got to start at the very beginning on with your mom, because your mom, how did she meet him?
Oh, okay. Well, on the set of Bonanza. Now, my mother was a model, and she was doing the Bob Cummings show. And they got her,
Beautiful, beautiful woman. And here's a picture of her. She's just gorgeous.
absolutely, and woman, she was his muse. Well, they got her name mixed up with the woman that was supposed to be on Bonanza, and she was supposed to be on Bob Cummings. So here she is. She's on Bonanza, and they put a Western outfit on her and a bonnet. Mom's like, no, I'm not wearing a bonnet. I'm not wearing this outfit. Well, your dad comes walking around, and let me tell you, boom, it was love at first sight.
Oh, that's
It
so awesome.
unbelievable love between those two. She said, "Oh, well, you can put that bonnet on." So that's how mom and dad met. It was the most incredible love I've ever seen, ever, with dad. And he even admitted she was the love of his life. And he said she was his muse. If it wasn't for Lynn, he would not have gotten as far as he had gotten. I mean, I'll get back to the Bonanza because there's a couple of funny stories, but he'd
Oh
be
yeah, I
sitting,
want to hear it.
they'd be sitting at a table with a bunch of people, and it was like no one existed. And dad would look at mom and she'd stare at him and I can't get emotional now. And he said, "Oh God, how I love you. I really love you." It was just, oh my gosh, to see that kind of love and grow up with that kind of love, it was so perfect. It was such a perfection. How happy they were. Oh goodness. So okay, let's get back to
And we did
Bonanza.
talk about we talked about some of that in the first show and about how your childhood was not happy. And then after your mommy Lynn met Michael, that then you saw what love really was. So that is great. It was great for her and it was great for you. It looked like sounds to me like you both needed him in your lives big time. Okay, so going back to Bonanza.
Okay.
Um, and my husband watches it every Saturday on channel 222 here in Oklahoma. And he watches it, and if he misses the entry of it, the promo at the very beginning of the show, he gets
Well, you
very
gotta
upset
hear
because he
that.
wants to hear the music. And that's why I want to hear what you told me about the promo that they do at the beginning of the show.
Okay. Well, first of all, they didn't know how to ride a horse.
Yeah, that's
And
amazing.
in the opening scene, they all ride up and they give you that multi-million-dollar smile because they stop, they look at the camera, and they give that smile. Okay, here's the real thing that happened. They were learning how to ride the horses. Well, one time they were riding the horses so fast that they went, whoa, and they did it with such force that they all flew off the horses and fell into the lake. Now they see this hand coming up out of the water, not the person, just the hand feeling around, and it was Lauren Green looking for his toupee. He didn't want to be seen without his toupee.
Do you like that, Mom?
Oh,
So
my.
Bonanza also had a different celebrity each week. They featured a different celebrity each week. Now there were 10 sets. Bonanza was 10 sets. I even
Okay.
went to explore because I was a little girl and I was curious. And I go up the top of the stairs and there wasn't anything accurate. It was just a stairway. It was sets. So they had 10 different sets. And that made up the house. And on location, it was Lake Tahoe. That's where we went to
Beautiful.
Lake Tahoe. And Bonanza, each of Dad's shows was about family and loyalty and different situations that would happen in real life. So it always had a message. It wasn't the cowboy comes in and cowboy fights the bad boy and it's just round up, shoot up, bang bang, and yay, the bad guy dies. Well, they had a message, and
They
that's
did.
why Bonanza was so popular. And let me tell
Yeah.
you another. Dan Blocker and my dad had the most incredible relationship. They were
And you could
brothers.
see it. You could see it on screen. And he was always giving Haas a hard time.
Well,
Always.
okay.
Not mean. Not mean.
They
No,
were
not mean.
they were pranksters. They loved to play pranks. One time they said that they got this uppity celebrity woman, and she just thought she was so hot, and they weren't, that there was a scene that they had a wolf. They had a wolf in the scene. So dad goes up to the celebrity and he starts talking to her, and all of a sudden he goes, "Wolf got loose." And Dan Blocker grabs her leg and she wet her pants. They were hysterical together. And
I guess you can't tell us who it was.
Dan Blocker.
Oh, the girl,
celebrity,
the
woman.
girl.
Even if I knew, I wouldn't say. But
I know.
wait to hear now. My dad loved strange animals. He had a pet tarantula named Homer. He put so check this out. He'd come to a kissing scene, or he'd meet someone and he would lift his hat off, and here would come Homer crawling down
Oh
his.
my God.
And then he had a kissing scene and he put a lizard in his mouth. And when he went to kiss the woman, he'd open his mouth and the lizard would come out. Okay. So you can imagine these guys, these two together were characters. And I had so much fun with Debbie and Dana. They were twins, and there was Dirk, David, Debbie, Dana, and their mom was Dawn. And I actually played with Debbie and Dana. In fact,
And they were the
Dan Block-
producers of the show?
No, they're children. Dan Blocker's children.
Oh, actual children. Because I
Real
never saw
life
children
children.
on their show. Okay.
I'm sorry. Yeah, they're real life
Okay.
children
Okay.
were Debbie, Dana, Dirk, and David. Dawn was a mother. We spent a lot of personal time with them, where I was about 13 years old, and Dan Blocker let me, Debbie, and Dana drive the truck on their property. They had a lot of property, a lot of acreage. So I got to learn how to drive in a truck on their property. And I played with Debbie and Dana a lot. It was wonderful. And the heartbreak was when Dan Blocker passed away.
Yeah.
And Dad said, the show's not going to be the same. It's just not going to be the same. He was very depressed. He lost his brother, and it was unexpected. He got a clot in his lung and he couldn't pass it. And it wasn't the same for Dad, but he still gave his best. They had different characters. And, Dad was a genius. He was the only celebrity on television to wear 4 hats. He was the writer, producer, actor, and director. He even went on location, to scout location. Dad got about 4 hours of sleep, and I would see him early in the morning sitting in the living room, writing on his yellow legal pad. He was just so determined to want to know the best of each situation of making a television show. And so he said when others on the break were taking a break and resting, he would be looking how to learn more. He'd be asking the director things. He'd ask the photographer. He was a very inquisitive man. And as I said, he was a genius. He had a keen wit. Wit? Oh my gosh. My father could also how he mutated the accents. He could do accents. He could tell jokes. He was incredible man. A very generous man. Very generous man. Very affectionate, loving man. And how is it that a man who went through such heartache as a child turned out to be so loving and kind? And his sister, she followed her mother. She went daddy. And Dad went the other direction. It's so interesting how 2 people from the same family could be so different.
Yes,
So,
I agree.
yeah,
Back I have a couple of questions, but first of all, I want to just comment on Homer because I would have had a heart attack if Tarantula
too.
would.
You-
I mean, just a heart attack. Okay,
I
but then whose idea was it? I mean, they're always in the same clothes. It's 14 seasons. I've never seen Little Joe always had on that green shirt and the brown pant. I mean, they all and Haas always wore the vest. Whose idea was it to wear the same clothes?
well, I was like young. I don't know that one. I do know
Okay.
that they did dress up for the socials. They
Yes,
did
they did.
change clothes for the
They
socials.
they did.
But that's a good question. I think we need to go to our Google and ask the Google because you're right.
I thought
You're
I
right.
thought that was it. That was always interesting. It was always funny how he was always in that same outfit, and green was his color. Gosh, he was a good
Yeah,
looking
he
man.
had a green jacket, beige
Yeah,
pants. Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
he's a good
And
looking guy. And then the scripts you said, and I also want to talk about Purnell. So a story
oh,
I had about Purnell, but on the script. So when you would have those episodes, and it was Haas, poor Haas, he always lost the girl. You know, she was always either being, after him for his money, or it was always something like that. And then of course, Little Joe was always giving Haas a hard time, and it was so comical when you say he was as a writer, was he the one who wrote those scenes that were so funny, or um were there other writers? I mean, how did it work on the writing aspect?
you know, that's a great question because Dad did a lot of writing, and I wouldn't be surprised with his sense of humor. No one could touch his sense of humor. So I wouldn't be surprised because Dad also helped with the directing. He said, I want to do the writing, I want to do
Yeah.
the directing. He didn't want the credit, but he did help immensely. So I would say those funny scenes, maybe not all, but I would say most of them came
And
from my dad.
probably impromptu sometimes. I mean, he
Oh
was such
yeah.
a talent. He could just move. And then on Purnell, what I believe my husband told me was that Purnell was offered maybe the 007. He was being considered for the 007 series, James Bond. And so he talked to his agent, and he decided he was getting big, in the show, and Bonanza was a big success. And so he left the show. And from what I understand, then instead of hiring somebody to replace him, they just stayed with Haas and Pa and and they just took the income that came from Purnell, and they were just fine with him leaving. And then Purnell he didn't get the 007 job, and he regretted that he ever left that show because it was a hit.
Okay, now
You know
you're gonna
anything?
hear
Have you
my
ever heard
side.
that?
No.
Okay.
All right,
Good.
now I'm gonna tell you my side.
All right. Well, yours is the truer side because mine was, I don't know where I
Well,
heard it from.
it could be, but Pernell Roberts thought Bonanza was beneath him.
Okay.
He thought the whole thing of Bonanza dressing up as a cowboy, all of that. He was so ego oriented that it was beneath him, and he quit, and he couldn't get a job after
Yeah.
that until he got, was it a doctor? Was it a show
I
about a
don't
doctor?
know.
All I know is that he had nothing to do with my dad or Haas, and you could see his attitude. It was quite arrogant because he was a classic actor. And I bet you, yeah, a lot of nights that he said, "Oh my gosh, I wish
Oh
I
my
was
God.
there."
And I bet you his agent was fired. It'd be
Uh,
my guess.
but yeah, they didn't like him. There was no question about it. It was no secret. He made it no secret. So, but they
Did
did hire Candy. I forgot the actor's name. They did have another character come in. It wasn't just the two boys and Ben. They had Candy. Candy was a person in Bonanza. He wasn't a son, but he was like a hand, um, a cowboy
Okay, I
hand.
remember him now. I
And
remember him now.
So there was always somebody. So he had that role, only it was a different role.
Yeah.
Yet,
Did you live in Lake Tahoe when it was filming there? I mean, how did that work? Because that's quite a drive from LA, and I don't know if they flew back and
oh, no,
forth or
no, no.
how
We
was
would
the
fly
filming?
there. We would fly there. I got the opportunity to do rodeos. My dad and my mom took me on the rodeo circuit because dad did the rodeos. And I even, goodbye, Joe, we gotta go, me oh my
Me oh
oh.
my oh.
I, I listen to those all the time. And I love the rodeo. And I thought, wow, but I could do that because I was in grammar school. I wasn't in junior and high school.
Yeah.
And I got to meet the original astronauts. Oh my gosh. And I got their
Wow.
signatures, and someone stole it. They stole my astronauts.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I had quite an adventurous life. So we got to go there, and I remember swimming in the lake of Lake Tahoe. My head feels like it was bubbling because it was so cold going under. But and that was when I played with Debbie and Dan, and they brought their girls. So that was what it was about. It was we went there, flew there, stayed there for several weeks, and then we'd fly back to Hollywood and then go
So
back
they would
to
do like several episodes in a row when
no,
you would go to it would be one
no, it
episode?
would be one episode, and then they would go back for another episode. So
Okay.
that was their location, Lake Tahoe. And then Little House
But then
on the
you had the
Prairie,
sets in LA that you had like for the
the
house,
10
right?
sets. Right, right. So the outdoors was on location. The indoors was at Paramount Studios with the 10 sets.
Okay. So you were there for all 14 seasons, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes. Yep. Yep.
Oh, that's
And then
neato.
that was what an experience that was. How lucky I was to be able to. And I was so young that I met Walt Disney. Can you imagine? I met Walt Disney
Wow.
and I met Elvis Presley. And I met a lot of celebrities, but it was like I was so young that I didn't realize what giants these were. I just
Yeah.
remember Walt Disney was the sweetest, warmest, had the kind eyes. I remember about him. He was just as warm and nice as you could believe. He was a good man, especially for a little girl,
Yes.
picking that up. He really had his heart into the theme of Disneyland.
Yeah.
So I was very fortunate, and I could go on those rodeos, and I don't know how they could ride those bulls and not have their back broke. Oh, the bull riding,
Well,
that's a tough one.
when you said that you went to the rodeos, you're saying that Michael Landon was actually in the rodeo as a contestant?
He would no, he was the show. He was the entertainment.
Ah,
He
okay. So
was
he would be
he,
like the commentator or
he would
yes,
come in,
the
he was the
celebrity.
entertainment. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Same.
in the middle of the rodeo, they'd all go and dad would entertain them. That's how I remember goodbye, Joe. We gotta go. Hey, do you want to do a duet together?
Yes. You can't stop me from singing. I'll sing with anybody except my husband. He really can't sing.
But I saw the show, and dad would come in the middle of the arena and he'd be shooting off the gun, and then he would shoot his foot. This was all planned. And he and they it was like accidental, excuse me, take time. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
He
Edit.
part of the show, he would shoot his foot and roll on the ground. Oh, everyone thought that was so funny. And he had a great singing voice. He had a
Oh,
really good
really?
singing voice. Oh, yeah. He was good. And mom was his protector. In fact, we had to go up a different elevator than dad because of the girls and the women. Telling you, that was just pretty wild. I'm not talking about 10, I'm talking a whole flock. Like almost 100 women be running after him, screaming,
Oh, God.
trying to tear his clothes off. I'll never forget one
Oh, my
time
gosh.
these girls came up and they found our room, and they said, "Is Michael Landon there?" And I'm a young girl. No. They said, can we kiss you on your cheek? Because that's the cheek Michael Landon kiss. And I'm going, oh, okay. It was very strange what people would do to have a piece of dad. So, but
Good
mom,
thing they didn't bite your cheek. That'd been terrible.
oh goodness me. Oh goodness me. And mom, she was tough. I'll tell you, those days were the best days because dad made sure that and he did this throughout all of his career, every single show, that everybody got to be home for dinner. That was mandatory. Everybody worked in.
That's wonderful.
And after dinner, he was very competitive. We always played a sports or was playing the pool, chicken in the pool, and badminton. And it was real family time. So, though I have
Well,
real good
before we get into the Little House on the Prairie,
I have one more story.
one more story on Bonanza. Because
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about his home repairs. So let's finish
Well,
out Bonanza, and
that's
I want to
coming
hear
up.
about his.
That's coming up.
Okay.
Um, Encino was our first home, and it was all dirt. And dad and mom installed a pool, and they had put a lava fountain. It was a waterfall, lava waterfall. And the bees were in droves because they were the nuns and they would use the bees' honey to sell. But the bees needed water because in Encino, the summers are like 100, 110 easy. So here's dad barefooted with a fly swatter climbing up our waterfall to kill the bees. Barefooted with a fly swatter. What he eventually did was that he bought the bees. He bought the bees and got rid of them. And that's there's so many funny stories, but now we can go to Little House on the Prairie.
Did he get stung?
Oh my gosh, yes. Of course he got stung.
Gosh.
I didn't tell you about the snakes and the python. That was also during that time.
Oh my. I don't think I'm as much as I love Michael Landon, I don't know that I could have hung out with him if he had Homer around.
Homer and the python snake, and then he had two little snakes. And
Oh.
this was like before we moved to Encino. We were in an apartment. And I'm going with mom on an errand, and dad had put these two little snakes in the glove compartment. And next thing I know, mom is running up the driveway and she's screaming, Cheryl, get out of the car. And here's two little snakes crawling up on me. To this day, I don't like snakes. I don't like snakes. And then he had a python, and the python went crazy. And anyway, that was the last. Mom said, no snakes, no tarantulas, no lizards, a dog, 2 or 3 dogs. That's the rest before the kids grew. So now we can move on. A Little House on the Prairie.
Which I remember as I was growing up, that I absolutely adored that show. I loved it. I had the opportunity to meet Melissa Gilbert a couple of years ago, and she was very nice. But the show itself, and again, it's like you said with the having a message. Of course, Little House had even more of a message, I think, than Bonanza did. And they touched into bullying. Because who was that awful blonde-headed girl that was always giving Melissa Gilbert a hard time?
Oh gosh,
I can't remember her name.
I can't either. I'm sorry.
But they were always picking, they were always picking on that kind of a storyline, or they may making fun of someone who couldn't read, and then of course Little Joe, or not Little Joe at that time.
He was Charles.
Charles, and I was thinking Pa, because they'd call him Pa. That Charles Ingalls, that he would give the wisdom that they needed to get to the end of the show, but to also to solve the problem. So with that said, tell us what I was very interested in where you said it was filmed. I thought that was pretty cool. I did not know that. Where
Well,
was it filmed?
it was filmed in Simi Valley, and they had actually built the whole set on this lot. And I have to look in my notes to see the name, but it was in Simi Valley, and their location was Sedona and Tucson. And that was because I went to the University of Arizona in Tucson, and Dad and Mom wound up making friends there. And Sedona, Arizona is just oh my
Oh, it's
gosh, it's
gorgeous.
heaven. It's
Gorgeous.
beautiful up there. So,
Well worth the trip to Sedona. I give a little plug for this area because it's just stunning. But anyway,
it's very spiritual up there, very
yeah,
spiritual.
it
And
is.
this was at the time of my car accident. So that's why the stories had changed. And uh Melissa Gilbert and my father, she was like a daughter to him, and he was a father to her. It was very authentic, the love. But Dad touched on issues that was going on in society and addressing them, how to love one another, because that was his belief. In fact, I think that's a perfect time for me to bring in his philosophy. It's very powerful. And Dad, he kept his promise to God by writing a universal message of spirituality in all of his television stories. Dad's promise touched millions of lives. In every series he produced, including Little House on the Prairie and Highway to Heaven, he expressed the things he most deeply believed. He believed in God. He believed in family. He believed in truth between people and in the power of love. He believed that we really are created in God's image and that there is God in all of us.
That's
Very
beautiful. Very
powerful.
beautiful.
Goosebumps.
That's
And these
beautiful.
are his
Oh,
words.
it gave mother goosebumps.
It's very powerful.
It is
And
good.
that was from my car accident. That, as I said, he saw God work, and he knew his purpose was to bring us together so that we can unite and start loving one another. And that's what, 34 years ago. In
Yeah,
the climate of today, we got to do something. We've got
that's
to.
true.
We got
We
to.
need
We got
another Michael Landon to come in to spread good things and to have a good TV shows
For
and
to be president.
or
Well, my brother Michael Jr. My brother Michael Jr. studied under my father, and he
yeah.
writes beautiful shows.
Oh,
He
good.
has my father's talent. Yes, my
You
brother
know,
Christopher.
I thought going back to Michael Jr., I actually thought he was doing some shows and they were on the Up Family Network. And I thought he had some produced. Am I remembering
Yes,
incorrectly?
yeah, yeah. Um, he even now is negotiating projects. And so I'd like to see, Hallmark is where they were playing. Hallmark was the
Okay.
show, the
Yeah.
safe.
I knew I'd
Well,
seen some and I liked them. I thought they were
they're
great.
really good stories, really good.
Hmm.
So if you can see Michael Jr.'s, turn it on and watch it, and you'll see how much he's like Dad.
Yeah,
You
that's
just got to
awesome.
start demanding that, because I'm turned. I can't watch the sex. I get embarrassed. I don't want to see it.
Yeah. I don't want to see it
It's
either.
and Dad was even like, it's much more appealing not to watch that, to leave it, have her wearing some clothes and you can be seductive, and then leave it up to the people's imaginations.
Okay, Highway to Heaven, I used to wait for each show. Um, I can't remember who his sidekick was, but
It was
Michael Landon was,
Victor
yes,
French, and I think he
Michael Landon
played
was,
Gordon. I mean,
right?
I think his name was Gordon. I gotta see this because Victor French, let me tell you a story about that. Mark Gordon. Mark Gordon. Okay. Now, Dad at this point in time had to fight to get those shows on. In fact,
Why?
NBC,
Why is
sorry,
that? Why?
because NBC sold their company to like Sony. And so you didn't have the creative people. You did not have the creative people. You had the people that were on making money and the sex and the violence. So Dad had a hard time getting his shows on, but it was always the people that got Dad shows on. Dad's most cherished award was the People's Award.
Yeah.
And he knew the people's hearts. Now, NBC did not want Mark Gordon. They did not want Victor French. They wanted a
Really?
good-looking young guy. And
Oh
Dad,
no, he was perfect
Yeah.
for the part.
oh, well, he was. And so Dad said, I'm not doing Highway to Heaven unless Victor French comes. And the reason why Highway to Heaven finally had ended is because Victor French had gotten lung cancer and passed away. And it couldn't be replaced. And that was the 5th year that Victor French was on. But you know what they said about Dad? They said, oh, who does he think he is? The Jesus of Malibu? And Dad said, get it right. I'm Jewish. I'm the Moses of Malibu.
That is funny. I love what you said just a minute ago about that he knew the people's hearts, because
Oh, yeah.
that is a true gift. And that is something that is lacking in today's society. I think they go for the quick thrill instead of your heartstrings and, touching people's emotion. They don't care. I remember I wrote a script one time and I never did sign with the agent, but he wanted me to dirty it up. And then he said, cut out all the dialogue and make them, less than a minute scenes. And I'm like, why? And he's like, people won't pay attention. But I would pay attention. I think that's crazy.
Yep.
And I didn't dirty up the scene, and I never called the man again. But that is the problem with they think you have to have sex and violence and trash, but there are people, there's you, there's me, there's my mom, there's my husband, there's my son-in-law or my stepson. There are people all around us that want good stuff. And
Yeah.
that's what the Hollywood people that run it now fail to grasp. They don't understand the importance of family entertainment.
And they have the whole sex scene. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just like, ew.
I know, that's so gross. I agree with you.
Ew. I think if more of us could have the voice of the people, in fact, I would love to do a show, The Voice of the People, and ask the people, how do you see us uniting instead of dividing? And
Yeah.
I believe if we got more united together, instead of being so afraid of going against what's cool, and we become the warriors of love, the warriors of God, the warriors for our children, we demand it and make that popular. We've got to. It's our generation that's got to step up, because our kids are getting pushed down into the ground and literally facing hell being popular. Why are these girls? I went to my 50th sorority reunion, and the girls in the sorority had dresses up to their hoo-hoo. And they were saying, oh, I'm so tired of guys wanting me for my body and they just want sex. And I said, well, look at how you're dressed. You're dressed is saying, hey, come on, baby. You know, let's change it all. We got to do something, y'all. We got to do something.
Okay, so you just said up to the woo woo and hoo woo up to the hoo woo woo. Okay.
We
And
got
you
the
know what?
we got the hoo hoo. We got the
We
woo
got the woo woo. I like it. Okay, so with that happy note, I am going to say sayonara to my good Cheryl Landon, friend Landon. But you know what we're going to do is we're going to talk about Highway to Heaven in our next episode that we're going to continue, but next week. And
Yes.
and so anyway, Cheryl, again, I want to thank you very much for this show, appearing on this show. And then everybody stay tuned and watch next week, because we're going to talk about Highway to Heaven and Michael Landon and some pretty cool discoveries that Cheryl found out about when Michael was getting ready to go to heaven, and some things that she wants to share on that regard. So we'll see you next week.
Thank you all. Come on back now, you hear?
You have been listening to Darla Z, live from the Hollywood Room on the Bootleggers Music Group Radio. Be sure to check out all our shows and download our app at www.bootleggersmusicgroup.com. The Bootleggers Music Group is dedicated to bringing you uplifting, educational, and inspiring shows for the love of God, one tune, and one show at a time. Be sure to visit Darla Z at www.darlaz.com to learn more about your award-winning host. Thanks for listening to or watching the Bootleggers Music Group Radio. Executive producer, Paul E. Jones.